Rocky was a beautiful dog, a small bundle of joy with bright, expressive eyes and a coat that shimmered under the light. His tail never seemed to stop wagging, and his boundless enthusiasm for life made him impossible to ignore. At just 4 years old, he was full of energy, eager to play, and always ready to shower anyone he met with affection. His playful barks and cheerful demeanor made him a favorite among the shelter's staff, who adored his lively spirit and friendly nature. Despite all his wonderful qualities, there was one thing about Rocky that deeply puzzled everyone at the shelter. He simply could not keep a home. He had been adopted not once, not twice, but an astonishing 7 times. Each time, a loving family would take him in, seemingly thrilled to give him the forever home he deserved. Yet within just a few weeks, he would be brought back, leaving the staff bewildered and heartbroken. The most confusing part was the variety of reasons given by the families. One family claimed he was too energetic, while another said he was too lazy and refused to go for walks. Some insisted he was too affectionate, constantly demanding attention, while others said he was not friendly enough. One adopter even described him as not a good fit, without any further explanation. None of it made sense. How could the same dog be perceived in such drastically different ways? To the staff at the shelter, Rocky was perfect. He was fun, affectionate, and full of life. He had never shown any signs of aggressive behavior, nor did he seem to have any unusual habits. Every time he was returned, he greeted the staff as if nothing had happened, bouncing around with joy as if he were happy to be back. But why did so many families struggle to keep him? Determined to find out the truth, a young student named Emma, who had been volunteering at the shelter for several months, decided to take matters into her own hands. Emma had always loved Rocky. She enjoyed playing with him, watching him race around the shelter yard, and laughing at his goofy antics. She simply could not believe that such a lovable dog could be anything but a delight to have at home. So she came up with a plan. "I will take him home for the night," she suggested to the shelter director. "Maybe if I observe him outside of the shelter, I will understand what is going on." It seemed like the perfect idea. That evening, Emma carefully placed an excited Rocky into his carrier and carried him to her car. As she drove home, she glanced at him in the rearview mirror. His tail was wagging so fast that his entire body seemed to vibrate with excitement. "You are just happy to go for a ride, are you not?" she said with a chuckle. Rocky let out a happy bark in response. Still, despite her confidence in him, Emma could not help but feel a little nervous. What if there really was something wrong with Rocky? What if, away from the familiarity of the shelter, he became a completely different dog? Had all those families been right after all? When she arrived home, she decided to take things slow. She gently placed the carrier on the floor, opened the door, and stepped back. She wanted Rocky to explore at his own pace, without pressure. She did not want to overwhelm him. Instead of hovering, she busied herself tending to her other pets, her old Labrador, Charlie, and her cat Lizzie, while keeping an eye on Rocky from a distance. At first, the little dog was cautious. He sniffed the air, his ears twitching as he assessed his unfamiliar surroundings. Slowly, he took his first hesitant steps out of the carrier, pausing now and then to glance around. But after a few minutes, his uncertainty disappeared, replaced by his usual high-energy excitement. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. Suddenly, he was darting around the room, his paws tapping against the floor as he excitedly sniffed furniture, jumped onto cushions, and barked happily at nothing in particular. Emma smiled as she watched him. This was the Rocky she knew, joyful, energetic, and full of life. Everything seemed perfectly normal. She let out a relieved sigh. Maybe all those families had simply misunderstood him. Maybe they were not prepared for a dog with his level of enthusiasm. Maybe they had been expecting a quiet lap dog and were surprised to find themselves with a bundle of energy instead. For now, though, all seemed well. Rocky was in his element, wagging his tail, running in circles, and thoroughly enjoying himself. Emma watched him closely, still determined to figure out what had gone wrong in his previous homes. She just hoped that by the end of the night, she would have an answer. Luckily, the next morning arrived without incident, and as the golden rays of dawn filtered through Emma's curtains, She could not shake the feeling that today would be crucial for Rocky. She had spent the entire night reflecting on his behavior, replaying every moment in her mind, trying to piece together the puzzle of why such a lovable dog kept being sent back to the shelter, time and time again. Determined to uncover the truth, Emma quickly got ready and set off for work. The car ride was peaceful, with Rocky curled up in the passenger seat, his tail flicking lazily. He had no idea what awaited him at the shelter that day, how the secrets of his past were finally about to be unraveled. When she arrived, the first thing she did was pull up Rocky's file. The paperwork contained a list of all his previous owners, and as she skimmed through the names, she felt a wave of curiosity wash over her. There had to be a connection, a common thread that explained why each of these families had ultimately decided that they could not keep him. Taking a deep breath, Emma started dialing the numbers one by one. Some calls went unanswered, but others were picked up, and soon a pattern began to emerge. Each of Rocky's previous homes shared a crucial commonality. They all had other pets. This revelation struck Emma like a lightning bolt, an undeniable pattern that had gone unnoticed until now. Determined to confirm her suspicions, she pressed forward with her calls, speaking to as many of Rocky's former owners as she could reach. As she listened, the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place. One family hesitated before finally admitting, with a heavy sigh, that Rocky had attacked their elderly dog multiple times, unprovoked. They had initially chalked it up to excitement, believing he simply needed time to adjust to his new environment. But the incidents continued, growing in severity, until they realized that no amount of patience or training seemed to curb his aggressive tendencies toward their older pet. Heartbroken, they had no choice but to return him. Another adopter, sounding equally regretful, confessed that Rocky had relentlessly chased their two cats around the house, never allowing them a moment of peace. What had started as harmless curiosity quickly escalated into something far more alarming. Low guttural growls, snapping jaws, and a terrifying intensity in his eyes whenever the cats came too close. Even when confined to separate spaces, Rocky would scratch and bark at the doors, desperate to get to them, as if driven by an instinctive need to eliminate their presence. The family, fearing for their cat's safety, had reluctantly brought him back to the shelter. Yet another former owner recounted how Rocky had clashed repeatedly with their existing dog. At first, they had held out hope, believing that with enough time, the two could learn to coexist. They tried gradual introductions, supervised interactions, and even professional training sessions. However, despite their efforts, the fights kept happening, each one worse than the last. The tension between the two dogs became unbearable, forcing the family to make an agonizing decision. Returning Rocky was not something they wanted to do, but they felt they had no other option. That was it. That was the missing piece of the puzzle. Rocky, for all his sweet and affectionate nature toward humans, simply did not tolerate other animals. He saw them as a threat, an intrusion into his space. However, the families that had adopted him had not wanted to say anything negative about him. They feared that if word got out about his aggressive tendencies, he might never get adopted again. Or worse, he could be labeled as a dangerous dog and put down. So instead of revealing the real issue, they gave vague explanations and returned him quietly, hoping he would eventually find a home where he could truly belong. Finally, it all made sense. Now that Emma knew what was going on, she also knew she had a choice. She could let Rocky go back up for adoption with the note that he needed a pet-free home, or she could try something else, something more challenging but potentially life-changing for Rocky. She could try training him. Could she teach him to coexist with other animals? Was it even possible? Some dogs, no matter how much effort one puts in, simply cannot change their nature. Emma knew this all too well, but she was not ready to give up on Rocky just yet. So with a deep breath, she made a plan. She started with something simple, controlled exposure. She allowed Rocky to see her other pets, but only through a safety gate. That way, they could observe each other from a distance without the risk of an attack. Charlie, her old Labrador, wagged his tail curiously, while Lizzie the cat sat on the other side, watching cautiously. Rocky, on the other hand, was furious. He barked aggressively, baring his teeth and lunging at the gate. His small body trembled with frustration, and Emma could see that he still viewed the other animals as intruders. The first few days were tense. Emma had to keep a close eye on Rocky at all times, and she started to wonder if maybe this was a losing battle. Perhaps Rocky really was meant to be the only pet in a home. However, then something changed. Little by little, Rocky's aggression started to lessen. His barks became less frantic, and he no longer threw himself against the gate in a rage. Instead, he would watch the other animals with cautious curiosity. One evening, as Emma was cleaning up in the kitchen, she glanced over and saw something that made her heart skip a beat. Lizzie the cat had wandered into the same room as Rocky. For the first time, Rocky did not react with anger. He did not growl. He did not lunge. Instead, he simply watched as Lizzie walked past him, then turned his attention back to a ball he had been playing with. It was a breakthrough. Feeling more confident, Emma decided it was time for the real test. She slowly opened the gate and let Charlie walk into the room. The old Labrador padded in calmly, his tail swaying gently. Rocky stiffened, unsure of what to do. His ears twitched, and for a moment, Emma thought he was about to snap. However, then something incredible happened. Instead of attacking, Rocky cautiously stepped forward and sniffed Charlie. His tail gave a tentative wag. Charlie sniffed back. And then, as if years of instinct had suddenly melted away, Rocky's entire posture changed. His tail wagged faster, his eyes lit up with excitement, and he bounced playfully in front of Charlie, inviting him to chase. Emma held her breath. Charlie responded, playfully nudging Rocky. And in an instant, the two dogs were running around the room, playfully chasing each other and wrestling like old friends. There was no aggression, no hostility, just pure, innocent joy. Emma felt a lump rise in her throat. Had she really done it? Had she helped Rocky become the kind of dog who could live peacefully with other animals? As she watched, Lizzie the cat even walked up and gave Rocky a few friendly licks before curling up beside the two dogs. It was a moment of pure harmony. Emma had never been prouder. The time soon came for Rocky to return to the shelter and go up for adoption again. However, as Emma got ready to say goodbye, she realized something. She did not want to. Over the time he had spent with her, Rocky had become a part of her family. He had changed, and so had she. She had worked so hard to help him overcome his struggles, and now she could not imagine letting him go. And so, she made a life-changing decision. She was going to adopt Rocky herself. He had already found his forever home, right by her side. Sometimes all a dog needs is patience, understanding, and a little bit of love to become the best version of themselves. Rocky had proved that, and Emma knew that she had made the right choice. Because in the end, Rocky was not just a good dog, he was a great one. Did you enjoy this story? Have you ever adopted an animal that faced initial challenges? How did you handle the situation? Let us know in the comments below. If you like the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Sometimes all an animal needs is a helping hand to survive, a kind heart to trust, and a safe place to call home. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.